Hey everyone, it is Shannon, and I'm here today to talk about Messenger by Lois Lowry. This is going to be another series talk video where I talk in depth about a particular book within a book series. If you're unfamiliar with series talk, I will put a link to it up above where I get more explaining on it. But the gist of it is these are more in-depth content-related conversations about individual books within book series. So these are not spoiler-free videos. They are content-driven videos and or like about the content of the book and how the books relate to each other. So if you are sensitive to spoilers, this is not one for you, so sorry about that. But if you don't care about spoilers, or if you've read the book and are looking for a discussion on it, this is definitely the place for you. So today, as I mentioned, we are talking about Messenger by Lois Lowry. This is the third book in the Giver Quartet, or these are often called companion novels. There's like the Giver and then there's companion novels. It was published in 2004. This is a complete series at 4 books, or 1 book and 3 companion novels, depending on how you look at it. It is a dystopic YA in terms of the genre and age group. It took me 3 days to read it, which has been the case for all of the books in this series so far. I think 3 to 4 days. I gave it a 7 out of 10, or a maybe a 3 out of 5, but more like a 2.5 out of 5. But on Goodreads I put it as a 3, mostly because I did want to indicate that I enjoyed it more than Gathering Blue, but not a huge ton. And actually this isn't one of my favorite. That's one of it's so sad because the covers that I'm used to for Gathering Blue and Messenger and the next book are all very, very light, so they don't read very well on video, but that is the one that I'm used to. But this is one that I found that I actually think is quite apt. This one feels quite apt, although I'm glad that I didn't know about this cover because it speaks a lot to the content of the book, which I was not expecting at all. So let's get into it. So this one follows the character of Matt, who we were introduced to in the second book, Gathering Blue. He is the young guy who helps the protagonist of that, Kira, the protagonist of that one, and he has a dog named Branch. He is a bit of a rebel rouser. He like scurries around a lot and gets into some mischief and stuff like that. But in this book, we find he is now with a settlement that Kira's father was involved, was taken to, or now has lived. So it's weird. I find it really weird because I really thought that that's what this book would be about. Not by the title. I like The Giver. This title is, I think, a little, I wouldn't go as far to say misleading, but it does not get, I find it confusing. Like, I think the title for The Giver is confusing because the protagonist is a receiver, and the giver is the person he meets, and the giver isn't even a thing until, like, he doesn't even know the giver is a thing. And then in this one, Maddie wants to be a messenger. He does carry messages places to place, but he's not a messenger. So he would have been given a different name. So again, it's confusing. Although it avoids spoilers. Both of those avoid spoilers, so I appreciate that, but I still find it a bit of a strange title. Maybe it is the perception, Maddie's perception is being a messenger. So anyway, so I thought that this is where we were going to go. I thought we were going to follow Maddie. He was going to be in the new colony, or not the new colony, the colony where Kira's dad lives. But Kira actually didn't come, and that was clear at the end of Gathering Blue. It's clear that Kira decides to stay with the very troublesome people that she's grown up around, and I guess she's trying to help them see the error of their ways of being mean, and I'm very glazing over it. I will link to my review of Gathering Blue up above, which I didn't have I didn't have a very positive reaction to. It's such a harsh world. And so, and even this one, like, I thought, oh great, we get to see where Kira's dad is, we get to see this new place, and I don't know if I suspected this or not, but we actually get to see Jonas again, who is the character from the first book. It's clear that he is the leader. Everyone's called by their professionish name, and Maddie thinks he'll eventually be called Messenger, and then everyone's speak. Oh, they do. His childhood friends, his friends, his the young people he knows by name, but then when they get their true calling sort of idea, they're called by their vocation or whatever. So like there's leader, there's teacher, and he lives with Kira's father who is blind, but he is called Seer, and yeah, but Maddie's still just called. They might call him Matt in this, but I always will think of him probably as Maddie. But he thinks he's going to be called Messenger, but apparently that's not his gift. That's not what he has to bring, what he has to offer. And I really thought this is where we were going to go, but I had so many challenges with this. Like, one, it was weird to it be so clear that Jonas was part of this community, but then to not hear from his side of things very much. And we know this because there is the sled in which he arrived on is a museum artifact. So that happened at the end of The Giver. So it would be very unusual for it to be a different character. And he can see beyond, which Jonas can do. So it was weird to see Jonas and not feel like we got a big connection with Jonas. Maddie's character is, he's very he's learning. He grew up in a different community, and this community is presented by the seer to Kira as a place that helps people, that takes them in, that heals them, a place that supports one another. People who are different are accepted as who they are. They're not meant to be tried to squish into the mold of like the norm or the norm, or, a particular ideal, or, supposed to be anyone other than who they are, which is why I was excited about finding and seeing this community. But when we get there, like, it's already feels corrupted. And Maddie's not super, like, living, like, he came from somewhere else, and I don't really know if they explained why he left. Either they explained it and I forgot, or they didn't explain it. But he does come to live in this community. Why? I don't know. Is it a better life for him? I don't know. It doesn't feel that way, and then that's heartbreaking. And then very quickly we learn about sort of like, I guess the easiest way to say it is corruption. There is a person who comes to town. There's this thing called the Trade Mart, and which has happened many times, and the seer talks about it as a sort of not very good thing, and people like don't talk about what they trade to get the things they traded. And I'm like, whoa, my mind went to all these dark places in terms of what they could have traded. But it seems so odd and at odds with what was presented as such an idyllic, accepting community. And there's a gaming machine, which is very much to be represented as gambling, because people, press buttons and lights happen, and if things line up, you get a treat. So it's obviously like a slot machine type of idea, and that's where I started to get a little suspicious about where this was going, because that's very much something that is real in our world, and nothing. Everything else we've seen in this world, it could be any place, anytime, anywhere. There was technology in the first book, in The Giver, but in Gathering Blue, people, like, she was doing like loom work and dyeing like cloth and threads with herbs and flowers and stuff like that. So they're having running water was unexpected. So like so it could be after a disaster, because it's dystopic, so it could be after a disaster. But I never really thought of these as centered in our world. I felt like they could be anywhere, and I don't know if other people, like, if that matters or not, or if people always think, oh, this just sounds like it was after a disaster and it's on Earth. For me, it does not matter that it's on Earth, but now we know it's on Earth because of the slot machine, but more so because there's a reference to Shakespeare. There's actually a literal reference to one of the plays of Shakespeare. And I'm like, I was just like, I almost dropped the book. I was like, well, I read it on my tablet, but like, I was like, what? I'm like, I don't want this to be real world. Like, I want this to be ideas and different and other, like, so like somewhere else, but yet it does comment on daily life, but so somewhere else that I don't want it to be like now. So now it's not only on Earth, it is after Shakespeare. So So I got my hackles got up a little bit on that. And then also with the trademark, like that, and you know, I think it's fair to think, like for me also with the Giver, there is this transference of energy and memory that is way beyond things that are possible in this world. So, you know, it feels possible that it's not Earth, because that's not possible. So anyway, as far as we know. So anyway, to get back to the trademark. So this is where things I started to get suspicious again about things, because Maddie goes to the trademark and just try and see what's going on, and people do start trading, and it's sort of very much centered around the trade master or whatever. I can't remember what he doesn't have a character name, but he had, like, his position is he takes trades, and people don't talk about what they trade, but it becomes clear that they sort of trade, for lack of a better term, their soul or a piece of their soul, or a piece of the soul of someone in their family. So, you know, very much to me now I'm starting to feel like, is this religious allegory, and is that person supposed to be the devil? Because all of a sudden that's very much what it's starting to feel like, that you're making a deal with someone to get something you want by giving away something that is important to you. And that feels like a very traditional religious story. And I was like, no, that's not what I came here for. That's not why I'm reading a dystopic. I thought this was about ideas and society. Like, of course, it's going to be. Dystopians are always social commentary, you know, in a lot of ways, right? Like, it's showing something that it's gone so far wrong, you know, that we can recognize that it is wrong, and hopefully we won't get there. That's, I think, you know, part of what dystopics are there for. Yeah, so for me it very much, because there was a man that there's a teacher character who trades, and he trades to look nicer, to have his hair start to grow back, to have a spot on his face start to fade, and there is a widow that he is interested in, and there's some laughing between her and her friends about, you know, maybe she'll be interested in him after a few more trades, when he starts to be more attractive in terms of appearance. And I'm like, where is this coming from? Like, you know, I just feel like there's such a distance between how this community was represented and what we're seeing now. Like, it's a couple of years has gone by since the two books, because Maddie has been there, he's lived there, he's acclimatized-ish, and his dog has passed away, his dog Branch has passed away. So he's obviously been there for a while, but not so long to see all this corruption. And then there's a very direct link in the story to whether or not they will or won't accept refugees. Like, literally, they talk about people coming in from other communities and whether or not they will accept them, or if they want to wall off, you know, the area and not accept any more people. And so some stuff like that feels very, like, this was written, you know, 15 years ago, but it's a very contemporary, and it's not only a contemporary issue for sure, but it just, you know, it just hit like really direct. The teacher character and some other people are sort of lobbying to wall off and not accept more people, and even Jonas, who's the leader, but he doesn't. Everything's put to a vote, and the vote goes in the way of this, because all of these people have traded and sort of lost their bits of their soul and are now less accepting of other people. And I just find it so strange, because it's like, where was the community that accepted people, that helped each other? You know, what is the trading representing? Is it representing corruption? Is it representing something else? Is it supposed to be the devil? Am I way off the mark there? I don't know, but I was just like, what? So anyway, I'm sorry, my hand's getting sore. But anyway, so as the story goes on, it looks like things are going to get closed off. The seer wants Kira with him, so Maddie goes to get her, and it's quite challenging. And then there's this whole subplot that actually, okay, let's persist. There's this whole plot with Maddie, who has the ability to heal. And that comes out of nowhere. There was no indication of this in the first book, so I'm not super happy about that. And then there is an interesting conversation between him and Kira, because Kira has a foot that is turned, and so she can't walk quickly, and Maddie does offer to heal her, and there's an interesting conversation that they have about that, and about how she says no to that because it's part of who she is. So I thought that was an interesting conversation. But then, like, there's this whole stuff about how the forest around them is getting very much more thick and aggressive, and poisoned, basically, just as the people are being poisoned by doing all of this trading. And I don't know if they're saying trading at all is evil. Is it capitalism? Is it evil? Is it evil at all? Is it an inevitability? Like, what? I don't know what the commentary is going on, but I was like, where are we going? So unfortunately, although this was the setting and characters I expected to see, I did not expect this to be the thread of the story. There was no reprieve from the horribleness of the world that we found with Kira, and it showed, the hint of an ideal world, but we didn't get to see it at all, so I didn't enjoy that at all. And then, because of super spoiler territory, very, very super spoiler territory here, and then at the end of it, Maddie sort of gives his healing power to the earth to make it possible for the Jonas to come save Kira, basically. But in the process, and he heals the earth, like the forest, the earth, but in the process of doing so, he dies. And I'm like, why did that have to happen? Why did he have to sacrifice himself? And I was just like, I don't, like, why isn't it enough that he was willing to do it enough so that, Jonas could come find them? I didn't understand the point of that, and, not having him as a part of the community means that the community doesn't benefit from his healing skills. And why didn't, and he was just sort of coming into it and he didn't really understand it and stuff like that. And Jonas has the power to see beyond, and Kira has the power she has a bit of a power of, seeing the future, which wasn't super clear in the first book, because in this one she would sit down and stitch, and literally the picture would show what was going to happen. So that was like a little bit like out there, but yeah, I was just really, and it got me. Like, I was emotional the last quarter of the book. I was very emotional. I was very invested in these characters, and I was very sad to see what happened. But I'm so leery of the fact of the messaging in this, and in what is the trademark supposed to represent, and all of this stuff, because Jonas comes back with Kira, brings her to the village, and all the people who were working on the wall leave it. They have come to see, like, apparently the error of the ways, because because Maddie sacrificed himself, and I think is BS. Like, they didn't do anything. They succumbed to something, and they didn't learn a lesson anywhere. Why did they want something in this community where they didn't need anything? Why did they lose part of themselves for the things they did? Like, I'm not sure what that's trying to say. And then, why, when Maddie heals the earth, do they see the light? There was no direct correlation. There's yeah, you can see it, but we didn't see that they learned. Like, I think they needed to come to that realization themselves that they had done something wrong, and they should do something about it. Not someone else should sacrifice themselves. And again, I could be totally missing a very clear story that gets told again and again because they don't have the reference, but I was not very happy with this, unfortunately. So the last book is called Sun. I have a feeling we are going to be following Gabe, who is the baby that Jonas brings with him, and I imagine Jonas and Kira will be a couple, and Gabe will be growing up, and that's what I imagine is going to happen with the next one. I didn't look ahead or anything like that, but I'm really sad. Like, I love The Giver so much, and I have really not enjoyed either Gathering Blue or Messenger. They did say Maddie's name would have been Healer, which is a word that people don't even know what that is. So I can't remember exactly if they said that or not. So anyway, so yeah, so far The Giver still reigns supreme. This one I enjoyed a bit more because I did like Maddie, I did like the seer, I'd like to see Jonas, and Gathering Blue I really had a hard time with. So, but I am gonna see things through and see where the story goes. But so far I'm not holding out tons of hope, but we shall see what happens. And yeah, so let me know your thoughts on Messenger. Let me know if you're gonna put spoilers and content, just put spoiler and hit enter a few times so nobody accidentally gets the information, because I am curious to people's theories in terms of what they're saying with the trademark and that character, and does it mean something, and is there some very prominent story that I'm missing here, like this is literally like the story of blank, you know, that I just don't have the context for, because I feel like that could be the case, because it could be, it very much is a message. I just feel like I don't know that story, so I'm missing that message. So yeah, we shall see how things go, but thank you so much for watching. I know this was a long one, and I'll be back with Sun pretty soon. Thanks for watching.